It. Hello world. We are now live, and I'll do like a intro once I send out all these links. How do you feel today, generally?
I feel good. A little bit of allergies, but overall, happy it's Sunday. And, happy to have an excuse to talk about art and have all of my favorite books next to me for moral support.
What books do you have next to you?
I have Biophilia, which is by a biologist from the 70s. I think this was written in the 70s. He has a really great kind of like view on art and just interesting sort of like narrative way to talk about biology. All art is ecological. This is more contemporary. This is 2015, I think. I can't remember if it was pre or post. Oh no, 2018. This is amazing. This is like, yeah, this is my favorite book right now. I'm still trying to like take notes from it. I have two like classics of like art theory, Ways of Seeing, John Berger, which is like if you Google art theory and what to read first, this is like this will come up in almost every list. This is also an older one, so you don't really get 70s as well, so you don't really get to contemporary art yet, pre-internet. And then I have But What Is Art, which is again just like Ways of Seeing, kind of like a good book for someone who maybe likes going to museums, wants to understand better like contemporary art and kind of like themes that are seen in it. This is 2001. Those ones I read a while ago, but just like nice to have. Is always like to recommend them for, especially for people who are still uncertain about like Dadaist art, like people who might say, is the fountain really art? Are ready-mades really art? I would probably recommend one of those, possibly. There's another one actually that was written by an art history / comedian, stand-up comic, and he specifically kind of like approaches those people with like a lens of humor. But once you're past that, then those are the books.
Nice. Those sound interesting. So, okay, we're ready now. I'm gonna introduce it. So I've been calling this A Dose of Madness. Sort of experimenting with that title so far. So far what it's becoming is anytime I'm interviewing or discussing with other people usually. And yeah, here we have Sara. So you are an artist, and I've seen your art, but I actually don't know that much about your experience as an artist, which some of my questions are about that. And I thought maybe we can get into that first, because it might be, I guess, important to like, because I don't know, the word artist is like this vague thing. And I don't know, like, so like, as an example of why it might be important is like some of the questions I was going to bring up are about things like, I noticed like a lot of art today, or artists are kind of living their lives in these weird like parasocial systems, and I don't actually know if that even applies to you, but I also think it's kind of an important weird thing that's happening in society too. I kind of put that towards the end because I figured that I don't know, that one's kind of like probably more far out from the other questions. But so yeah, I'm kind of curious. Well, I don't know, first you can introduce yourself actually before I start asking questions. So who the heck are you? Oh, it's not making audio. Oh, there it goes.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So my name is Sara. Chromoglyphs on Instagram. I'm sure we'll get into that when we talk about parasocial relationships. And I studied as a motion graphics designer, which is similar to animation, but you'll see it more in title sequences, in commercials, in that flat corporate illustration that is very popular to make fun of right now. and I went to SCAD, which is primarily a school for careers in design and has less of like a fine art bent, like maybe RISD or other colleges. And so I started there, was working in that field, and got really into more experimental short film and VJing, which is live visuals. And then since then have sort of dived more into poetry and spaces where like science and art can overlap, and performance art, and reading things like all art is ecological. So as far as like my practice, I sort of separate my motion design, the stuff that I have to do just to pay bills, and then what I consider more of my art, which recently, I would say the best example of would be a short stop motion film that I made using lemons. It was all experimenting with how many different ways I could animate a lemon, kind of as a, I'd say, a durational performance or experiment with one object and my relationship to it, because I was really interested in the like the space that existed between, like, let's say, painter and the painting, and the time that goes into that, and how people will place more value in things that either they can see the process and how long that it took, or just like the knowledge of that time. And I think sometimes it's just like, wow, he's so dedicated. But I think most of that is someone putting themselves in the shoes of the artist making it, and thinking about what was that experience with like the canvas, even if they're not really consciously thinking that. I think that's where that weight comes in of why people are drawn to this art that seems like it's just very time intensive. And so that film was very much about that process, about having that relationship with the objects. I think stop motion is a unique way of capturing people's attention when it comes to patience and time invested in a project. And I was tired of thinking about concepts and tech and like tech art. I just wanted to do something, one-to-one, something simple, object, me, art. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards art-wise. And and my sort of background come from animation, but in like commercial animation, but very interested in fine arts, and also just the way people communicate with art and subcultures around who's making what, and why they find that important art to make, or why it is that they're expressing themselves like that.
Yeah. So I want to ask first, because I'm already getting like a lot of questions in my head, but there's also particular topics that I definitely want to get to before the end of this. So I'm curious, how much time do you have to do this? The audio's cut out again.
I don't know what's going on with that. We can just go for it. I don't know, I'll probably maybe around like 1 or something, or just after 1. It's free museum day, so I was going to go with my friend to contemporary art museum today.
That sounds awesome. Okay, so you've said a lot of things so far that already touch on some of the questions that I have. Like, something I noticed about you is that you tend to also kind of, from what I can understand, you're kind of having an interest or hanging out with people that are scientists. So what's up with that? Like, were you trying to major in science before? Or like, I don't know. What's up with that?
I wasn't. I like did, well in the subjects in high school, but that's kind of the extent of that. I got really interested in philosophy, and I think it sort of started there and then sort of bleeded into psychology. And I've always been sort of like a fall between on subjects and like social groups, because I'm really I don't know, I'm just really fascinated by different perspectives, and so I will sort of just become a visitor in these different worlds. So I think that's kind of what I like, being a fly on the wall in these other spaces, because I don't know, it feels like any one sort of subculture is always going to be lacking in like a larger picture kind of view. I also had a relationship with a scientist for a while, so they're very interested in phenomenology and psychology, and so sort of bridged my philosophy further into, I guess I would say, more practical sciences. I don't know if you call phenomenology that, or the cognitive science side. Yeah, I suppose, but.
Yeah, I like that topic a lot. Okay, so what was I going to ask? There was a lot of stuff I thought of when you first said what you do. Well, I guess, let's see, like, okay, so I guess like part of the goal that I wanted to do with this, well, so I want people to kind of like see more like I guess gain kind of like what you just said about like visiting different worlds. I kind of want people to do that to the art world in this conversation. And so one thing you mentioned is attention. I feel like attention is kind of like a currency now, or maybe it always was, but I think it's especially now, probably because like there's such a mobility in being able to like, I don't know, like people can just kind of like find their ways to people who have power through gaining attention and stuff like that, which then actually translates to like power for themselves. And I think that's like more relevant to today's world. And so I don't know, like you kind of mentioned, I said I was going to do it at the end, but we're already doing it. So I'm curious, like, so you mentioned Instagram and like, well, I don't know, what do you generally think of like the situation of like artists and parasociality and stuff? Oh, I think the audio's not coming again.
Yeah, maybe is it back?
Yes.
I think I would start with like attention with that, because I think I agree that it seems to be, if not more important, just like much more like quantified and like measurable than ever before. And so it, in a way, I suppose maybe it creates a system at which people can assume to know the value of art or the effect that the art is having, which would be a false assumption, because like algorithms and a lot of different things at play as to what art gets more attention, and it's a false correlation to say that the art that would have more likes or more views or something would be of more value. But I think it's maybe a little bit hard to escape that. And there are good examples of art that is unique, is valuable, is interesting, that does have a relatively good following. So, you know, sometimes the right things do get attention on social media, but not always. And it's still a fight. I think there's also people kind of assume if you don't have a lot of views or attention on social media and you see someone who does, you kind of confer that, okay, well, you must have a lot more opportunities, you might maybe make more money and stuff from this, but a lot of those artists, even if they have like a large social media following, doesn't necessarily mean that they are successful like monetarily. But there is like you were saying, a sense of power, I think, in those networks. If you get to a certain amount of followers, I think that other people will kind of take you more seriously, whether that is like founded or not. I think the more engagement you get, people who might be in positions of power, especially in your local community. I think this applies very much if you live in a city that has like a scene of some sort. The you know, if you are shown to be hanging out with someone in the scene of like some relative, I guess, social power or whatever, then not only will, you know, like if this is happening pre-social media, no one would really know unless they saw you in person or this person told others. But with social media, it's like one tagged photo, and now their whole network knows that you are associated with them. Even like, it depends. Like, probably the people who are more social media obsessed or have like a stronger parasocial relationship with this person of power or whatever will probably put more weight on the fact that you have linked up with them than maybe people who know them well or whatever. But that's all it takes, and now suddenly you're kind of associated with this like you know, separate circle that might have more like weight in the community. But it's all very like illusionary, it feels to me. Where it can be really fleeting, and whatever power is in that, it seems like is very much like an illusion based on you know, people are seeing this and kind of and feel maybe like that you have some more weight or connection, but I think, you know, it doesn't take much interaction face to face to kind of like eliminate that, or much, you know, if you attempt to use it a little bit too much, that can also could eliminate it. So it feels very much like a resource that is not reliably like quantified, or like something you could really cash in or depend on at all.
Yeah. I noticed this really weird illusion on Facebook actually like yesterday, where it's kind of like I don't know, the range of like, I don't know, like reacts that I might get on a Facebook post has been like between like 1 or 2 to like 40 tops maybe, on regular posts at least. And like I noticed this weird illusion where I think my feed is almost all people that are like hitting like a really high threshold for like how much reacts they're getting or something. And like a lot of times when I like check their profile, they're actually, it's not like they're regularly always getting this amount of likes. Some of them are, but there's like this kind of like weird thing where like it starts to feel like, oh my gosh, everyone I associate to is like always getting a lot of likes all the time. And like it's kind of like hey, actually, okay, it looked like you were talking right there. I think I know how to fix the Discord thing. I think there's a thing on Discord in the settings. I think it's like I'll see if I can like find it, but it says if you go to your settings and go to voice and video, I think there's something called automatically determine input sensitivity or something. Or
yeah, input mode voice activity. If I just turn off automatically determine input sensitivity.
I think so. I think it might always allow the sound to come through if you do that.
I'm gonna let my cat outside real quick. She's gonna keep me out.
Okay. Hello, world out there.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, hi.
Okay.
Oh, hey, someone's out there, actually. Lovetron9000 says, what's up? Okay, so I don't know, the parasociality thing, I think it gets like really weird. Like, I don't know, like I feel like, okay, so I think a lot of art is kind of inevitably driven by incentives. Some of the incentives are personal, like we have like some personal interest in some topic or idea, but then there's like this other aspect where other people are like motivationally paying us off to do different things. And I think there's a lot of weird stuff to that. Like, I don't know how much that was an aspect in the past. Like, I feel like way back in history, and I don't know about this, you can tell me if you know about it, but I feel like someone would be like chosen as an artist a lot of times or something, and then like I don't know, like maybe a king or something would pick a person to be like the artist or something weird. Or something more organized somehow, I feel like, but now maybe it's more democratic in a way.
I would say now more than ever. I think this is like newly democratic because of the internet. Because previously you had to just get lucky, and most of the time, I mean, to really make money and be big, you were, represented by a gallery. Or showed in a gallery that could choose to represent you, or, sort of eliminate your career. So now it is more democratic because people can directly become patrons of the art that they want to see, whether that's supporting them on social media or like with an actual like Patreon or something like that. So yeah, I would go from like direct patronage of like, the wealthiest class being like the church or like, kings and stuff, supporting specific artists. And, I think the only way you'd really get to be an artist is you apprentice with, a working artist, but there wouldn't have been, very many of them. And you impress royalty, and then you get to make art. And then it kind of shifted into, just like gallery representation as being like the main way to be creating art. And then there was some patronage still involved, but more with like, I guess what would have been considered more of a middle class, I guess, like merchant class. That's what I'm thinking, like, of like Van Gogh times 1870s, 1890s. But yeah, it's much more democratic now, and so that determining who is a great artist. But there's still the fine art world is still there, is still labeling what art is worth something. It's like blue chip paintings still exist. Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons are two examples of living artists of that sort of, I would say, old guard of people who are making a lot of money doing exorbitant art for big museums and galleries, and still having a I would say critical success. But that's, to me, as far as I'm concerned, like a very different world from this, from maybe where the more mid-range artists fall, trying to make careers off of like collective communities like Patreon, or even just like local communities if they're showing in galleries and trying to sell work that way.
Yeah.
It feels very separate to me.
So one thing that's weird about, I think these kind of, like you kind of highlighted it a little while ago, about these, like this weird parasocial system, is that like it sort of, what it seems like is happening more and more in the world is that like I think there's definitely value in having so I think there's definitely value in having like the amount of like social, I guess, capital that someone has. I think it actually is valuable, and it's sort of reasonable to want to get closer to people that have that, even though that's basically like separate from the art, or even technically maybe anything the person is doing. But I think also people will tend to like the way that they're finding people with social capital is going to be like filtered into whatever their interests are too at the same time. But the thing that's weird about it is that like the more that someone accumulates social capital, the more that it's like it's almost like a feedback loop, because the fact that you're having social capital, it is like a utility. Like I saw this person on Twitter where my friend is friends with this person on Twitter who's like, they only have like 400 people, and like I noticed Grimes is following them and I'm like, what the hell, who is this person? Like Grimes only follows 1,000 people, like what's going on? And I was like compelled to like just DM them like, who the hell are you, or something like that.
I had that response as well. I'm like, oh, this artist is more valid because someone else I like is following them, and the more unusual it is, the more intriguing.
Yeah, like I think a lot of times we're trying to figure out how to, like I think artists who are trying to go this route of like I think there's basically like professional art where like you're hired by someone because of some expertise, and then there's like this other world where you're trying to like socially make a name for yourself and accumulate like some sort of power that can allow you to continue doing your personal art, basically. And I think we try to like find how can we, like, it's like, I don't know, I feel like this whole parasocial thing, it creates this thing in the brains of artists, I think, or at least me, where I'm like almost like obsessively thinking like, what am I supposed to do that's right, or something, like what are the right things? But then there's all these weird like sketchy things where it's like someone just being famous is a reason for people to like them, like, or them having social power is a reason to like basically give them more social power. And like it gets really weird, and I don't think that there's necessarily like I think there are right things. Like I think you do, for a lot of the cases, I think you have to still be good at something. But then there's like a lot of weird things. Like I'm pretty sure this person that Grimes is following, they weren't like posting super crazy things, and I don't think they have to. I don't think it's like Grimes is out there like, you gotta prove yourself if you want to be someone that I follow. Like I don't think that's what they're thinking at all. But I think when we first look at this person, I think it comes off like that, like, oh my god, what did they do right? Like, how can I like prove myself like this random person over here?
It's a big influence on what you might try to make in your art, which I think is probably a problem.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be making the best art that you could that is like, I guess, either true to you or your, you know, what you might make otherwise if you're seeing what this person's making, and so you're like, oh, okay, this person I think is cool, following this person, what are they doing right, should I be more like them? It's definitely a risk you run, and I think that, you know, you can usually you can recognize it pretty clearly when you see that, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't sneak into your art kind of like subconsciously, like choices that you make, because there are just so many small choices when you're making specifically visual art. I'm sure it applies to music and stuff as well, that you might not fully realize why you make a choice, and it could be tied to these people that you are seeing that seem to be doing the right thing to get the attention that you want. So, but yeah, the right thing isn't like with the Grimes example, that could be, you know, they could have just known each other from some other time. Like a lot of times when you if you get the chance to like say you have this parasocial relationship with someone and like their community or whatever, if you get the chance to actually see them in person and kind of witness the community in person, I would say probably 99% of the time you're going to see, oh, these people, these two were like roommates in college, that's why they like hang out with each other. Or or this person actually doesn't look as hot as they do online, or whatever it is. Like most of the time, like you see that like darker side, or the side that's like, okay, this person isn't, it's not this game of like the best, the coolest, or the most attractive or the most talented person is linked up with these other people. It's very much a fake presentation. And I think what's interesting is when people who have that I guess position or power in a community don't even like it seems like they're not even trying to have it. It's just like their their life or whatever. I think that people are drawn to that that aspect, and sometimes it's just because that person is, I don't know, just in a position where they it's their life and they just kind of happened into what is trendy at the time. Like certain tattoo artists, I think, have this thing that's like, oh, okay, whatever it is that you're making is like, it's not necessarily because you were super talented at this thing, but like a larger overarching trend that places you at like a position of power. It's, oh, this is a cool thing right now. And so, yeah, another reason that someone might be connected to someone else that isn't necessarily about talent or emotional connection or doing the right art. Yeah. And then there's like, of course, the platform at the time too. Like, maybe you liked one tattoo artist and you're finding a bunch of them on Instagram. And a lot of people are doing that now. Everyone's following all these different tattoo artists, and they have this like, social capital that goes beyond their work.
Yeah. I think there's like, I don't know, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so what do you think about, let me see, I'm going to go through this list. Oh, there's actually another topic in parasociality, I guess. Like, I don't think every person experiences this, but I do see certain people that experience this. Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of weird things where, like, it feels like I'll get, like, mixed perceptions, and it drives me kind of crazy a little bit. Like hate and love, basically. And, I don't know. It's psychologically weird. Like, the most horrible thing is that I will do something like, I'll be thinking like, okay, the people that love me, it's because they don't get it, or there's something wrong with the fact that they appreciate me on some level, and the people who hate me, they're just right. Like, they're just, and the rest of the people are just kind of crazy, or like they're naive, or I don't know, but that's horrible, I know, but I don't know. And it's very disorienting. I don't know if you've experienced anything like that.
Not a specific like event or occurrence, but definitely mentally, just with the experience of someone complimenting you and you being like, oh well, you're wrong about that, and then if someone criticizes you, you're like, okay, yeah, that that makes more sense. I think that there's what is it? It's a memory thing. Like we're tend to remember more negative things versus more positive things. I think it's a related thing. I would believe. Or maybe we just are both very
depressive or something.
Take compliment. Yeah, depressive people. Yeah.
When you were saying the memory thing, I was thinking immediately about, there's like these studies about like people who are depressed will have like selectively enhanced memory for like bad things or something like that. sad times.
Awesome.
Wait, say it again? Oh, the mic is like not going through. Still not going through. Oh god. Oh, I think I heard you. No, I don't know why it's doing this.
Yeah, I had that setting turned off.
I don't know if it's even the setting. I think I don't know, this is maybe just fake patterns, but it seemed like maybe it's dependent on like your angle of your voice to the mic or something.
Like, just make sure I'm facing or something.
I hope it's not like, sometimes like I think it could be like, if there's like, so my computer fan is horribly loud. Maybe it's like silencing you based on thinking I'm talking or something.
It's entirely possible.
It's not showing my audio at the moment though, so I don't think it's, I don't know, but anyways, I think I hear you now.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that there's I feel I don't exact study or anything in person. I'm speaking from like personal experience as well. But that there's like a time distortion when you're depressed, and I think also that applies to like specific negative memories. Like you might see a bunch of different negative events happening like in a more compressed time than a bunch of positive ones. So there's like there's general sense of like it seems like the mind latching onto or realizing or like remembering better like negative occurrences versus positive ones. People love a good scandal, going back to like social media and stuff. Someone hating what you're posting or whatever can fuel them more than them loving it. Like they might go and dig up information about you and try to figure out who you are, or be more motivated to like engage if they are angry or think that you're wrong. I don't know, which I haven't really had, but I am like scared of. The more I think about let's say things further away from my commercial art, because commercial art to me feels very unable to be inflammatory. When I think about the kind of art that I would want to make, anytime you're like pulling more of a stance that one kind of art is, better than another, and at least that you want to make it more than other kinds of art, I think there's a chance you're going to, have to defend that against people who disagree. So.
Yeah. I felt like sort of, I don't know, doing a lot of like, so it's not always necessarily art, but just things online. It's so psychologically weird, and there's like this component where I feel like the only people that will really have a sense for it will be people who've experienced it, and then that creates like even more of a weird thing where like I think there's just like there'll be a bunch of people not factoring in those things, and then it's like there's all this pressure like my urge would be to try to articulate all of what's happening, but then I think that's not, I don't know, like obviously that'd be, well, it depends like what you're doing. Sometimes I have made videos trying to articulate some of the weird stuff, but I think for most people they wouldn't be trying to, like I think it would be almost like taboo to be talking about it even, or not even just taboo.
Relationships, taboo to talk about. To talk about them a little bit. or feels, yeah, yeah, I don't know, it feels a little bit taboo because even if everyone has one with someone on the internet, it's, yeah, yeah, I don't know why I feel like I agree, there's a bit of a taboo with unearthing, um, like that psychological sort of pull of why if you notice someone that was defending or giving value to someone based on something that you could see was parasocial, pointing that out might feel weird or upsetting, or they might disagree.
Yeah. Hmm. Some of
But,
my.
yeah, I guess.
Sorry, what were we gonna say? Oh, the mic is not going again. Still not. There it is.
How about it's good? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't really saying anything anyway. Yeah, you can go ahead.
I don't know. Some of the other questions I have, I think are. I don't know. Well, like I think the weird position, I guess, of being like, I don't know, like I don't know. There's so many weird things about all of that space, but I don't know. I guess I'm gonna ask something more. I feel like this question's boring, even though maybe it's not. What do you think the role of art is in the universe?
What a boring question. Universe is an interesting way to base it too.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that there are multiple ways to approach this question, which is why I think it's a good one to ask just anybody, especially, from painters, sculptors, Twitch streamers, just, different scientists, it's interesting to see what different people say. What is art's role in the universe? Universe is throwing me a little bit. I don't know what it would be on like this larger scale. I think humans on Earth doing their thing. Its places in this. There's a unique position art holds that feels separate from a view of growth and evolution as like a straight line going up, constantly just progressing to better. That I think art is really good at kind of breaking that illusion, because very oftentimes it feels that it is unnecessary or extravagant or extra. It doesn't really feel functional in the way that other things do. And so I think that it is a really good thing to have in society because of that, because it creates a space for things that we don't fully understand, and also just seeing things in a slightly different perspective, where you can realize how to use objects differently, or how to express things that I think are maybe beyond language, or beyond, maybe you use language to do it, but it's beyond the way that we currently are using language. I think science has like a similar aspect of this kind of exploring things that maybe people might see as, okay, well, we already know this, or we already understand this, or we're doing fine without going, like, exploring this. Like, I think a lot of scientists and artists will get obsessive about a certain problem or interest that they have that can seem like a little bit odd to like a dominating society or social order at the time, but then actually lead to something interesting. And I think without that sort of drive to be sort of counter progress, as others might view it, is a really good thing, especially in like capitalistic society, where, if it's not profitable, it's very hard to keep something, to sustain something, or view it as being successful. I'd also like to say that one of my favorite writers on art and like why art, I can't remember her name at the moment. I'll look it up. But she's a anthropologist and artist. She's a professor at the moment, but she writes a lot about like human evolution and art from an anthropological sense, and she likes art. Definition of art as making things special, I believe is how she puts it. Talks a lot about early pattern making on like functional objects, where like a pattern making is like functionless to the object, and it's a beautification, but beyond a beautification, it's like a spell or process that would have been used to kind of try to eliminate a doubt, whether it had like a religious tie or something. Her idea is that this like very geometrical like patterns sort of were like imposing order and structure on chaos, like your hunter-gatherer society, constantly facing the fear of dark, death, starvation, all of this, and that art at that time, that beautification or making special, was sort of like a way to feel like there was control or order over things, and just like a sort of comfort. And so I've been really interested in her writing, specifically on this idea of it being sort of like inherent to create this comfort and order, and also despite whatever magical or religious qualities, just this nonsensical answer to things that just are unanswerable to us, or, especially to humans from the distant past.
Yeah.
So, has lots of roles in the universe, but say nonsense is the role, comfort is the role, exploring things beyond like the current mode of progress.
Chaos.
Yeah, it's on brand for me.
I love your answer there, because okay, so the one thing that I dislike, and I kind of wanted to make sure we get to this in here today, is that usually art is like seen as this thing that doesn't have like some sort of functional utility, but I feel like that's almost the same as like saying like say people who are doing surgery are like, anesthesia doesn't really have a functional purpose. It's like, it's really just making the surgery more mentally aesthetic for the person being chopped open. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I think it's like a weird framing. And I feel like some of it, I don't know if this is really the case, but I think some of it stems from like some weird competitive mentality that people have, where like, I think probably there'll be like, say somebody in science, maybe they like grew up loving art, and then like, let's say like their parents are like, no, you're not gonna fucking do that, you can't do that, and then they kind of like later they're like, no, that's a pointless thing to do, and maybe rationalize that way or something. But I think that like, I feel like, okay, like if we look at like medical stuff or like treating diseases and stuff like that, that does have utility, obviously, and it's kind of like but it's like, I don't know, it's not like we're gonna do all these things to like preserve our lives so that we could just like sit in these empty boxes staring at the wall for eternity, being like just safe and not dying and just doing nothing. Like, the purpose of, I feel like part of the purpose is so that we can like make sure that we survive well enough to consume all the various art things that make our lives actually good, like all the Netflix or video games or festivals or music and food that's delicious or whatever. Like I feel like some of art is made to kind of make people feel good, but then there's also like communication type art, which kind of brought that up too, like communicating. I think a lot of it, like I think language itself is just, it's almost like old art. It's like art that's now become infused in the entire medium of communication between people. And then when there's like unexplained new things, like I think a lot of the people have like different ways of, like a linguist might invent a word that tries to capture some new experience that hasn't been explained in words. But I think a lot of artists, like let's say someone who draws, they might try to like convey something that they've experienced that they can't articulate, or maybe they don't even want to articulate it like that, and make it totally understandable through like pictures or other mediums. And I do think all those things have function. I actually get really triggered when people think art is not functional.
You're right that a lot of that stems from people who had experiences where they were told they couldn't be an artist, or that it wasn't functional, or maybe they had artists who criticized their work, or these like social relationships or power dynamics that kind of like put them off from feeling like they could make things. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people might have that opinion, all of which are upsetting, because I very much think anybody can make art and be creative, and the outsider perspective that hasn't been fed a bunch of Instagram aesthetics probably will come up with something a bit more interesting or more personal if they're sort of given the chance or the model or the right sort of medium and maybe like prompt or sort of game. I think sometimes games or as prompts are really good at helping people get to a place of being able to express something and like what it is that they're expressing. I think it's also like a limitation of what the definition of art is. A lot of these people also be like, oh, well, I can't paint, so I couldn't possibly do this. Whereas they could paint something badly, or they could write something, they could make up a new word that could be just, their art in general. But I don't think it's, I don't think it's bad for for some art to be considered functionalist, at least in the sense of like, oh, this isn't, maybe just that the function is hard to see, versus like medicine or something, that a lot of times, people see like the act of doing this thing as not having a function and they stop there. But I think the power is seeing like, okay, this doesn't seemingly have a function to me, but like, why am I obsessed with it? Maybe I should do something about it. Like maybe there's a really cool lamp that is very fascinating to you, and you're like staring at it and you're like, that's silly, stop staring at the lamp, you're wasting time. But maybe drawing it, or maybe making your own lamp or something, which is maybe not the best example because lamps have function, but maybe you're like, oh, I can just buy one instead of make one. That exploring that what appears to be like functionless at first, instead of stopping there, just accept like, okay, well, maybe this doesn't have a function, maybe no one will like it or whatever. Maybe I think a lot of making myself make art comes from a place of having to just live with the fact that I don't understand why I'm doing it. Like, why would I make the art? Like, what is the function? What am I trying to achieve? But at the end, I think like there's the feeling of having added something that didn't exist before, even if it just ends up being like an extension of yourself in the world, is validating. And again, and that kind of goes back to this like, making an object special, like the sense of comfort and like this sort of like, maybe barrier against existentialism, or just making life better. Like you said, like if we were in a box where we were perfectly healthy and everything was good, we'd want these things to make life enjoyable, and to communicate. I think a lot of art is a good tool to communicate. If you you write a story, or a poem or something that, you feel like this is the only way to embody your experience. Like you couldn't just tell someone like, I had this bad thing happen to me, but you write this poem about it that's beyond, just the details of something that happened to you. And then you can hopefully, someone else sees it and relates to it, and you can connect in a way that is beyond if you just like, made a Reddit post where you're like, oh, this bad thing happened to me. And maybe that's good enough. Like maybe you can connect people that way. But I think sometimes art, because it comes out of this functionless sort of space sometimes where like you don't, like maybe the poem isn't trying to connect to other people, you're just trying the best you can to put into some sense like what this experience meant to you. And if someone can access it from that same sort of ambiguous space that isn't trying to take attention from them or isn't trying to explain the thing but just embody it, I think that's a unique way to connect and communicate to people, versus like if you were like, this bad thing happened to me, someone else, how did you deal with this thing, like let's talk about it. I feel like that's more of a proposition than like this third object. I think art becomes this object separate from the person in a way that like maybe a direct narrative or something that has more utility struggles to do in the same way. And All Art is Ecological is actually good for this. It talks a lot about art as this like third object that is like a being of its own, like not inanimate.
Okay, I should check with you. I still have time, but I think right now it's probably 1 there, so I should check in with you.
Start to wrap up.
Wait, it cut out a lot. I heard the part where you said start to wrap up though, so I might have gotten it.
Yeah, just if you have last questions or stuff to, I can talk for a bit more. Just if there's a subject you'd like to end on or something you haven't like brought up yet, or anything like that, Check of time. It's been nice talking.
Yeah, I liked it. So I think, well, how about this? If you're up for it, and it's okay if you're not, but we can do this like again another time, and I could ask you different questions or something. I'm open to that. I do have more questions, but I don't think we should. I think they would be long. So yeah.
I can also try not to. Sometimes you'll go off in a lot of things. I can try to be more. Keep it short or concise. So it's more back and forth than noodle brain.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to explore like weird things. Like I think there's like, there's actually a question in the chat that says, "Do you go into a meditative zone when making art?"
Yeah, sometimes I do. It's like a flow state sort of thing. There are 2 different. When I'm doing commercial work, I sometimes get into a flow state with like very like automatic tasks. And I guess it's similar to my fine art as well. Oftentimes it doesn't like come over me though. I think some people describe the flow state as something that you slip in, like you just feel it. It's just like something outside of you that comes in, and now suddenly you're, everything's coming easy. I think a lot of times I have to force myself to start something, and yeah, sometimes that's overcoming that feeling of the work being functionless or whatever. Like I have to force myself to get started, and then as I'm doing it, I get into this more meditative like flow state of the process, but it's rare that I have that before sort of like getting over the first hurdle of starting the project.
Yeah. I wonder, you said fine arts and commercial arts. Do you think that the whole parasocial thing, do you think that's like a third class?
Yeah, possibly if you're thinking about like your goals of like, commercial art, you're trying to make money, fine art, you're trying maybe to, let's say fine art in like the purest, most spiritual sense, you're trying to like do things that haven't been done before and express yourself to like the truest, your truest ability or whatever. And then the parasocial sort of like goal would be you're trying to make art that people will like and then be able to collaborate and work with other people who you think are cool and have social capital or whatever. But I feel like people who are doing that probably won't like own up to the fact that they're doing it, and usually it's tied to one of those other ones. Either they're also just like, in that sort of like fine art or like craft art sort of thing where they're making something they really like that feels personal and they just want people to like it, or they want that personal art to be able to also make them money, so it sort of can tie into the commercial art. And a lot of times satisfying your need to think that to feel that your personal art has importance, and also and to be able to survive while doing it, like the ultimate goal that is painted for the artist to be able to make money and support yourself based off of your art. A lot of people think will feel the parasocial is how you do that, which is how social media is set up. You get enough eyes, and then possibly brands will fund you and your lifestyle, and to do that you try to position yourself in a place of power, and ideally you don't compromise on like the art that you're making to do that, but it's really hard to tell from the outside if someone is making something because they really truly feel connected to it, or if they have been on the path since the beginning to make something because they knew that it would get the most attention on social media.
Maybe there's some weird crossover where people, what if they orchestrate, their art form is to orchestrate the behavior of crowds of people or something?
Well, there's someone who does this actually, or I would say people who seem to do that. Like, have you watched Nathan For You at all? Nathan
A little bit, yeah.
I think he does that a little bit on a small scale, not a crowd scale. And so does, I think meme artists can also do that in the way you make something that is satire, and that some people will take it seriously and other people will know that it's satire, and you can kind of just watch as people get angry and like are manipulated by this like image. That can be completely separate from whatever your intention for the image is, or maybe you have the intention to create this social experiment or disharmony or reaction in like a large amount of people, and I very much think that is art. But a lot of people, I would say that's a common belief.
Yeah.
There's also a hard thing to measure or sell or become profitable, which is another reason why maybe it doesn't feel very common. But I think it is. It's happening all the time. Brad Trammell is a good,
I like him.
Yeah, I'm really into his work and his video essays. I'm a subscriber. I feel bad because I keep recommending him to people, and I'm hoping it doesn't like bite me in the ass someday. but yeah, I think he's a really interesting voice, even though sometimes I get sad when he's a little too anti something, and I'm like, but I actually kind of like that thing. I like painting, and he's just like,
Yeah.
But overall, as far as memes, subcultures, and art that takes the form of like social experiments, I would say he's a good source for those types of things. So thinking about it. And he spent a lot of time reading and studying art theory as well, like before he sort of like moved out of what would be more of like a traditional fine art, like art theorist sort of space. So I respect that.
Yeah, he's good. So I want to ask about. I don't think I should do it today though, but I'll tell you what I want to ask about. Possibly in the future, if you're up for it. I had other things like. I don't know. Some of them are more dangerous. Well, I didn't ask about AI art. That one's not dangerous. But there's other things like. I have this idea that I think a lot of. I don't think it's like totally generalizable, but I think people. Like, sometimes I think artists get treated kind of badly. And I don't know if it's actually specific to artists. Maybe everyone just treats everyone badly all the time. But I also think there's like a thing like I've seen people say like with like the way I've experienced a lot of it is like SoundCloud artists thing. Like there's like people will be like, "Oh, you're on SoundCloud, are you?" And like I feel like they barely even give you a chance if they hear that. I think that's kind of like stopped happening now, but there was like a phase where like it was almost like cringe if you had your music on SoundCloud, even though like I don't know, like I think it's just because everyone's allowed to make music now, and the accessibility allows a lot of bad people who probably get like super hyped up, like look how amazing it is, and then they're wrong about how amazing it is, I guess, or something.
Yeah, I've got that sense from SoundCloud, like SoundCloud rappers and stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't have like didn't have a positive connotation. Although now I feel like maybe it's like almost like a genre or something.
That's so crazy.
It's similar to like DeviantArt or something, if something gets known as the weirdest or shocking or worst of the platform instead of the best. But yeah, I think there's also the sense that like most everybody is an appreciator of art, and less people are makers of art, and so there's a harder position to be when you're a creator because of that, is because everyone has an opinion, and feels entitled to that opinion, but you're still the one who's making, has to sit down and make something, and that takes work and dedication and stuff that is sort of separate from like a dominating taste of other people. Which is why I guess it's nice to make something to, try to be like, oh, I'm making this for me and for no one else, which is hard to do. Yeah, I think also I don't think people who aren't artists think that artists get treated bad, unless they're thinking of like the model of like the starving artist or like the Van Gogh like depressed artist. I think people tend to have either the model of that starving depressed artist, or a sort of like better than thou kind of like intellectual like social elite artist. I feel like it's both of those. The second, I guess, maybe could be treated badly by certain circles, but those people will get things like, oh, I can never be an artist, like it's like you're like put on a pedestal or something, and then other people who will also confer wealth to that, like generational wealth sometimes gets conferred to like that type of artist, and certain people will treat you badly because of that, which is fair. And then there might be this third kind that's more of like the like influencer.
Oh yeah, people hate influencers.
Influencer artists, yeah, exactly. And there's like a crossover influencer artist that doesn't really get that better than thou feeling, but gets more that like either the parasocial like obsession, or the like, oh, like you're a little bit of sellout, you're always posting or whatever, like you got the brand deals, like a little bit of that sort of feeling. And then they might get treated badly, but like, well, I don't know, like any of these can also still have like the reverence of like, the potential to get like social capital from especially if they're good. But even if they're good, people might, some people might think they're bad or might not like them because the brand deals or whatever. Like, I don't know. Maybe it all goes back to like that religious patronage, like this art's like sort of on a pedestal, like removed, like the rest of us have to do this and work, and you can paint your pretty pictures, and like why do you get to do that? If the public hasn't decided that you're good enough.
Yeah.
It's a mix, I think, of people treating artists badly, or like putting them up on a pedestal. Like even if you were a SoundCloud artist that had like a lot of attention, people really liked your work, it's probably unavoidable that some people would find a reason to not like you, think that you don't deserve the attention.
Yeah. I think the thing you mentioned about if doing art for yourself, one thing that's weird about that is if one of the functions of art is communication, I think it kills off that. And I also hear a lot of people say, like, I don't know, like I try to show people certain things, and like I don't know, like people will be telling me to do it for myself or something in a slightly aggressive way. And I don't know, I'm like, but I'm designing it because I want to do something to the person, like the point of it is actually to brainwash you. No, I'm just kidding. But also, so what you should do too, I think you should plug yourself in whichever ways. Actually, the audience asks you to do this, but I think you should do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at Chromaglyphs on Instagram. Chroma like colors, and glyphs like little marks. And that's a mixture of my commercial art and fine art. I recently had a residency on welcometomyhomepage.net, which is like a web residency in Austin, Texas. And my piece that was in August called Scrolling Exercise is up there. So yeah, feel free to check it out. It's like a little audio meditation and a little bit of web animation.
Oh yeah, I tried that thing.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm proud of it. I made a thing. And yeah. What to say about it? You can check it out if you're interested. It's it's really just about imagining the physical manifestation of all the stuff you've been doom scrolling past inside the muscles of your thumb, like a demon or something, and like meditating on like removing that using like the repetitive motion of your thumb scrolling. And that's really just it's the cornerstone of the idea. Everything else around it is sort of decorative. I just think there is something in that repetitive motion when you take it out of the context of scrolling past what you normally scroll past. And you could even just do that, like sit there, close your eyes, and pretend to scroll for like a minute and just see what the sensation is. And that's would be equivalent to the art piece.
Yeah, I will link those below, and I'm gonna put this on YouTube later, and so I'll link your stuff there. The audio cut out.
Oh, I was saying thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think so. We are. I think we should probably close it up or whatever. And okay, so thank you for coming on. This was interesting and good. And if you want to do it again later, you can. I don't know. I'll ask you later about it. And yeah, thank you again. The audio's cutting out.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it was great talking, and thanks to anyone who watched and is in the audience. Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Have fun at the museum.
I will.
Peace.
Bye.
Oh wow, look at that. It gets all crazy when that's trippy. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off. Okay. So I don't know if people are still out there. I'm gonna actually try to pull up her Instagram and show her art on the stream, because let's do that. I think it would be a good idea. Wow, I just saw my friend on Instagram. That's kind of crazy. Not crazy, I mean there's no context for what I just said, but my friend has changed, that's what I can say. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up, I'm gonna see if I can get this on the screen. We're gonna show Sarah's art. It's gonna be good and fun. Okay. There we go. Okay. Let me make sure this, I guess it's gotta be like this. Whoops. We're doing the scrolling exercise right now. We're doing it right now. Okay, let me think. Maybe I can just, you gotta see my emotional reaction to this, right? Wait, oh, I think I don't even have it the right size. Let me, get this going. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna, like, do this a little bit. I can actually probably, since I can see the post right there, there we go. That's like the right shape. None of the excess side stuff. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna look at this stuff. Look at this stuff. This one's pretty cool. Some of them are videos, so I'll click on those in a second. Oh, this one's cool. Maybe I actually do have to... Well, no, it kind of shows. Let me just... Okay. And, okay, that looks like it works. That's pretty sick, isn't it? Oh my god. Let's see, what else is on here? Wow, I love it. Stop motion. Okay, let's check. I guess a lot of these are probably videos. I don't know if this one's a video. No, this one's a picture. It's pretty cool though. Wow, interesting. It's reminding me of the AI art. What is this one? We didn't click this one. This one looks peculiar. Oh, this is like a time lapse of making the claymation stuff, I think. Wild. It's like a lot of work. I still have a lot of questions, so I kind of want her to come back. I felt like we have to stream for 5 hours. No, I'm just kidding. But it's kind of hard because there's like certain things. I want it to start with like, I want people to understand who the person is first for the context of like, I don't know, so they can have weird stereotypical things in their brain go off. No, I'm just kidding, no. But I think, I don't know, I think it's more actually to change the way, upgrade people's perception of the artists, but also it's more specific than that because there's a lot of different types of artists, and so that's part of it. That one's pretty interesting. I have another friend that does this sort of stuff. I kind of want to get him on as well, maybe. He has kind of intense views though, so I have to think about it. Not just intense, but like, I don't know what it will turn out like. I don't know if it'll, it's like one of my closest friends, so it's a little bit touchy. But we've collaborated before. We did some music video type stuff. We've done, I helped him get some drone footage one time. And stuff like that. This is pretty cool. Looks like I saw NFT there. Intense. Okay, I'm gonna check. Is chat going off? Nope. Okay. This one looks interesting. Boom, bop. Beatboxing. Okay. It's a weird way to end the stream, right? Like, I never really seen people be doing this, but we're gonna do it. Because also it's kind of short already. But we were gonna stream it like an hour before we did, but then it got delayed. But maybe shorter. More people will watch it if it's shorter too anyway, maybe. It's more digestible. Wow, this one looks interesting. Her art is epic. Okay. Is this a video? Yeah. Scrollingexorcism.com. What the heck is that? Oh, that's probably her page, actually. I think she might have already said it. Yeah. The doom scroll thing. I think that's what it is. I've been to that. Yeah, okay. If it's here, then it's definitely that. I'll let you guys do that on your own, because I think it won't work through video like this. Hello, Lovetron. Thank you for being around. Thank you. Let's see. I kind of wanted to get into dangerous topics, but I didn't. Like, some of the things I get curious about, like, I get really, really curious about the subjective experience of different people, and I try to, like, notice patterns in those sort of things. But there's, like, a lot of that stuff is hidden. Like, there's a lot of things that you're not allowed to talk about, but I actually want to do that. Like, the fact that we aren't allowed to talk about it is, like, squashing empathy for a lot of people. And I think one of the ways that that's happening to artists is like let's say the experience of let's say the whole SoundCloud musician thing. I think that there's like a lot of distressing components of that, and I think a lot of people don't have empathy for musicians over those things, and I think it's because partly they actually don't even know it exists, and it's because you're not supposed to talk about it. But I think we should. And I've experienced so many complicated, weird things, like not even just with art, but I don't even know what to call it. Some of it's like art, but some of it's like, I don't know, just like writing stuff, like it'll be a science post even, but on some level it's kind of art-ish, I guess. But I think it's sort of something separate from artists, but I think that they've collided. This whole parasocial thing has collided with the art world in a strong way, because like that's the way a lot of people think that they're supposed to make it in the world, basically. And there's so many weird things about it, like the whole hating influencers thing. I think that's like disturbing a little bit, and everyone just thinks it's okay. Or they think we have to, like, if you don't hate influencers, you're a bad person or something. But it's kind of spooky, like it's a little weird, like and I don't know, there's like other weird things, like there's one of the dangerous topics. I didn't write it that many down because I barely just started thinking of it, specifics on it, but there'll be weird things like envy. Like, let's just take envy. Like I don't know, like with what I do, this is going to be so dangerous to talk about. But I've had people act sort of, or even tell me things like that they've. Okay, no, actually, let's make it less dangerous. Let's make it less dangerous. I've known a person who will tell me how they envy a DJ at their work, and I don't know, like they're not like some crazy successful DJ, but they envy the fact that they DJ at all. And but then let's say, and stuff like this will sort of like, I get the sense of it be like that. I don't know. No, I don't even see. It's so dangerous to talk about. But okay, so basically the thing I'm getting at is I think people will envy people who do creative things sometimes. I've had someone, okay, let's make it, this is a safe way to talk about it. I've had someone higher status than me tell me that they envy that I do music. And I'm not very successful at doing music, but they just simply felt like, they're like, wow, I wish I can do music or something. But okay, like when you contrast with this with like the amount of hate that I'll experience, it starts to get weird. Like when I talked about like people expressing love and hate, there's like these weird components where it's like, I don't know, like I think people don't get how there's like a lot of pain in a lot of the stuff I do, and it's like I'm not even like that successful at any of it. So it's like I imagine it just gets worse. Like if it were to get better, right? But it's like very confusing and disorienting. Like I don't know, and it's like there's like it's almost like mixed signals of people where it's like I see that certain people like appreciate me, but then there's other people that talk just mad shit. Or it's like some people think I deserve to be punished to like, I think it's like there's a sense that artists, you need to balance out, like everyone's like looking at them like, I don't know, like they're like, oh, you think you're so good, right? We gotta like take you down a peg or something. Like I think that sort of thing happens, and I think a lot of people start to like imagine the pegs of standing and weird things like that, and I don't know. It's really weird. There's also all those weird components, like the whole thing about like once, like a lot of people, they follow or they get close to people depending on whether or not they think those people are going to become high status. Like it's so totally like separate from actually their art or whatever they're making, and that bothers me a lot. Like because then it's like there's like pressure to like okay, like this guy, this scientist Robin Carhart Harris, I'm about to do what I'm talking about right now while I'm saying that it's a problem. But I have to illustrate the point actually. Robin Carhart Harris is a very popular psychedelic scientist, and he followed me on Twitter. And there's like some amount of pressure where I feel like I need to make sure other people know that this is happening, like I'm doing right now. But that's not actually the reason I'm doing it right now. But I'm happy that it's a utility of what I'm doing. But no, so the reason I bring it up is because it's disgusting and sad that I need to, like, that there's actually a value in me bringing this up. Like, people will, like whether or not they read the essays I write about psychedelics, it's almost like there's, like, I think there'll be a huge amount of people that are, like, more focused on, like, not what you write, but, like, if they get close to you, there's, like, a utility for themselves, or maybe it's like, oh, I know that person, or something weird. And so then there's like this pressure to like signal like I guess like social capital, but I think I do that really poorly. Like I think I divide up my connections, and then any sort of like public space is usually dead, and I'm just like invested in like talking to a lot of people individually, which is like a weird thing. But I don't know. And then there's like weird things where I feel like there's like people who talk to me less, Like, I feel like I've observed people talk to me less based on perceiving that it's not panning out how they would want it to be. Like, they're like, I don't know, this guy doesn't have as many followers as I thought he was gonna have. And then they, like, kind of back away. And, I don't know, it gets so weird. Like, it's like this, it's like you have to learn a meta game of, I don't even know, like social manipulation, which this bothers me to the point that like I almost refuse it. But then there's like certain things like, I don't know, like I know people who will advertise the fact that someone famous followed them or something. And, I don't know. And I've also seen my friends suddenly change their behavior around famous people. And that got really weird. Actually, one time I invited a famous guy to my birthday. And then, like, while it happened, I realized how regrettable this was. Like, I didn't think it was going to get weird. I'm, like, thinking in my head, my friends won't do something weird in this context. And then it just got weird. Like, they were all just hyper-focused on this guy that's famous. Like basically, it was a famous vegan guy. And like most of my friends were like people from the vegan community, so they actually know this person and admire this person. And then it's like we're all like at dinner and everybody's like focusing on this guy, and it's like my birthday, and it's like, I don't know, there's just something so weird about it. And then there was like this other moment where like one of my close friends said something kind of belittling to me, like in a way that was like belittling my, I forgot what it was. Like, I think they joked about how, I don't know, like they might have joked about how unsuccessful I was in a certain way with like art or something. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, to be honest. It probably wasn't even what I'm saying right now, but I think the way I felt about it was like that this person is like trashing me in front of like this person where I thought it's like I didn't think that the person I'm with will necessarily, or I didn't think that the famous person is gonna like necessarily see me different. But at the same time, it's like a little bit weird because it's like, I almost feel like it's like setting a standard like, oh, so this is how your friends treat you. Everyone thinks you're a loser or something weird like that. Like I thought that my friend might have been purposely doing that as like I think this friend hates social hierarchies anyway. So I don't know. Like, it's kind of just a weird thing, though. But I got, like, triggered by this. It was so weird. Like, in my head, I'm just like, what the fuck is your problem? And I've had something similar happen where weird, incestuous social Facebook chats started to include people in my sort of professional network and also a weird culty friend group, which Lovetron, you're very aware of what I'm talking about if you're still out there. But that got weird, and nearly I got doxxed kind of in a certain way. It's just so weird. Like, there was a moment where I asked if one of my friends would like to like stream with me, and then they're like they sort of always are trolling and playing, and the way they said no to me was kind of like this rude thing. And then they basically said that my intention was bad, and I was like triggered by this because it's like the people who don't like, there's people in the chat where I've professionally interacted with them and collaborated with them, and who are actually even connected to Robin Carhart Harris, the guy that I told you who followed me on Twitter. And it's like they don't know the context of these groups that much. And like, I think just watching people disrespect me like that, it's like, I think it comes off to like, if the people who I've connected with on a more like serious level see it, I think they'll kind of like, I think it's bad because it looks like like, they don't know that I'm friends with this person. They don't know anything. They'll just see it as like, wow, people don't like Gage or something weird like that, you know? Or maybe they won't, but just the fact that that's even possible, it bothers me that someone else would kind of like pit me in that situation. And I kept like trying to find ways to get those people removed from the group without doing it in a moment where there's like some drama, because then it looks like it just becomes more obvious. And I don't know, it was just like this weird way that I felt like on one level I felt like friends could exploit power over me in a weird, like, it's almost like blackmail. Like, it's weird. And I like, that's something I actually get really afraid of with all these weird parasocial dynamics. And even right now as I'm saying this, I'm scared to even talk about that, because I think it like gives people the idea that it's possible. And I don't know, like, it just feels weird, like I'm giving people the potential idea. It just seems so dangerous. Like, the whole world of parasociality and social dynamics or just social networking in the internet is just insane. It's so insane and weird. Everybody like has like their personal version of who you are, and it becomes super obvious that that's the case, like, because they're all expressing it. And like, people even get like, I watch other people thinking there's like a consensus about me, and then there's other people who have like a different consensus about me in a way, and it's just so disturbing and weird. Like, I remember when at first that was something beneficial. When I first was going to the internet, there was a consensus on me in my life that I hated, and it poisoned my, like, the whole soul indoctrination project that I did recently. That's what it was about. And then when I went to the internet, I was kind of freed from that problem. Like, I realized, like, so like the first thing that enraged me is that like certain people in my real life would like look at me very badly. Basically, my ex had a very bad view of me, and later now I sort of think there was like, I think it was basically kind of an abusive situation. But at the time, I think I more like thought that I just purely deserved all of it. But then once I went to university and I escaped all of the influence of people around me that were kind of like training me to see myself a certain way, like a consensus perspective on my identity, I suddenly just started doing really well in university, and even well with the online projects, and like people online would like treat me with like respect, and I wasn't used to that. And then like, I feel like the way my ex would treat me, it would be like, you're such a stupid failure. Like, she would like basically almost literally say that to me. Like, it was kind of bad. Like, she told me I was going to fail university. Like, we'd have these dramatic fights where like I would keep trying to tell her, like, I think the way that you're like, I think when we have these situations and the way that our relationship is panning out, I think it might actually be a factor into me performing really badly in life. Like, there'd be weird things, like I would come visit her constantly, and like this would detract from being able to focus on studying. And then I would bring this up and she would see it as like an excuse. And like, she would kind of have this idea, like, you should be able to handle both. Like, you should be able to do well in your studies and come visit me as much as I feel you should. And I don't know, it just felt like weird, impossible standards were being created, and there was no sense of like her understanding what is actually possible for me to do. And then she would sort of not believe me about, like, she would say it's an excuse if I was trying to take control of my time management or something, is kind of how it felt. And then once I went to university, I couldn't see her because I lived far away. And I don't know, just like I did really well suddenly. And then like there was one project I did that got like 20,000 views or something. And I don't know, like, it was just like, there was like people asking to collaborate and stuff, and then it was like weird because like it's like there's like these people who I don't know are treating me like with respect, and then like naughty, oh shit, I shouldn't say that. Blah 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 blah. Somebody, my ex, would treat me like a child, and it would be harmful. But then like the people treating me with respect, it would like train me like I have to live up to this standard. Like I would literally like start like just like I have to mentally stand up straight. I have to prove my worth as a professional or something. But then like in my regular life, it's like, oh, Gage is this person who has this terrible life. He's never gonna really be successful. It's such a pity. He's also like a failure, and he will keep failing out of school. Like his whole life was just so messed up that it's not possible for him to do anything. And this kind of viewpoint would come from all these different directions, and it would seem rational. Like a lot of people think that these perspectives are rational, and that's part of the problem. They will even persuade you to believe in them, like just even like subtly. Like they'll just go about interacting with you as if it's just true, and you won't even notice that it's happening. Like rather than someone telling you that you are this pitiful victim, they'll just kind of be like if you fail in school, they might be like, you know, you've had it really hard, Gage. Like, you know, it's understandable that you'll fail. And it seems like really nice, but it's actually really insidious. It's poison. And but then on the other hand, it gets scarier when I've met other people who are like aggressively telling me, damn, I hear my dogs going crazy down there. I've had people aggressively shut me down, like telling me how hopeless my life has to be or something. And I think they don't realize that that's what they're doing, though. I think a lot of these people, they just believe that something is true and that they understand how the future works and how life works in society, and then they impose it onto you. So that was kind of the point of that whole project. And that's actually, I wanted to get into that with Sara, maybe next time. But I thought it's risky on some level. Like part of it because I don't think everyone faces this to the same degree. And I don't know. I feel like it could get weird if I don't want to just, like how I'm doing right now, I'm just going into it rambling. So like, I didn't want it to become like that. It's more okay now that it's at the end. But I didn't want her to be here for me, like, rambling about my position on something if I suspect that her life doesn't really happen like that. So yeah. Okay. I don't want to make this too long anyway now. Hope this was interesting. Thanks for joining. And go show love for Sara and go to her Instagram and go to her projects. I'm going to list them in the YouTube down below, the description. And yeah, see you later.